Hey y'all, welcome back again to another episode of Healthy Design. We'll continue talking about our genetic SNPs. Today we'll discuss GST and GPX. These are two enzymes involved with glutathione. We've kind of touched on it several times. Glutathione, master antioxidant, so it's needed for detoxification, plays a role in immune health, heart health, different things like that. And so what GST does, it actually helps to neutralize pesticides, heavy metals, etc. So things along that lines, and then that way our body can get rid of them. GPX, it actually helps to neutralize hydrogen peroxide, which we talked about a little bit in the last one. So hydrogen peroxide, H2O2, it helps to convert that into H2O. That way it's water and not a harmful substance anymore. Um, so again, these things are involved in detoxification. We'll get into that a little bit more in a minute. But one interesting thing is that our microbiome, so all the bacteria there, they have their own GST enzymes. So a little bit different than the rest, but that's how important it is. So some things that can be problematic with this, high sugar, high fat foods, all those things can actually deplete glutathione. And what do we crave when we're stressed out and need more glutathione? High fat, high sugar foods. So that doesn't help anything. And then stress itself can increase hydrogen peroxide. We talked about that some last week. That's why people will get gray hair when they're really stressed out. If they don't have the glutathione to convert that into water, then that hydrogen peroxide is there. It can turn hair gray. And so we've got that going on. So we need more glutathione, but we're depleting glutathione with what we're eating, and we're stressed, which needs more glutathione. So you kind of see this never ending cycle where it just kind of keeps building on itself and making things worse. Um, should also note that hydrogen peroxide is produced when our immune system's fighting an infection too. Again, that's just another stress on the body. So stress isn't always this mental stress or this physical stress, like lifting weights or something. It can be just kind of the byproducts of immune function and just what we're doing on a daily basis. That's why I like that term allostatic load and kind of keeping those things in mind. Um, let's talk about detoxification. So I'll have a rant on detoxification, but we'll talk first about it. You can find different things where they might include like a phase 0 or even a phase 3, but typically what you'll find is a phase 1 and a phase 2 detoxification. So phase 1 detox is often taking a lipid soluble substance and making it water soluble. We kind of talked about this with cholesterol. We can't have fat just floating around in our bloodstream or anything like that. So we have to make it water soluble so things can move around and get rid of. The bad thing with this is that often switching it from that lipid soluble substance into that water soluble substance actually makes it an even more toxic substance. So we definitely want to get rid of it. That's where phase 2 comes in. It combines that new metabolite with another molecule to help excrete it from the body. And so this way it helps to neutralize that new substance and then get it out of the body so that it's not an issue. And so it should be noted that this kind of detoxification occurs with medications too, to make them where our body can use them, but where there's not dangerous byproducts left over. So GST and other genes are involved in phase 2. Cytochrome P450 enzymes tend to be involved more in phase 1 of detox. And then again, like I said, GST and some other enzymes are involved in phase 2. The glutathione coming in there to help neutralize those things. COMT, as we talked about before, is involved in detoxifying estrogen, dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine. It helps to manage those metabolites. MAOA, MTHFR, they're kind of involved as well. MTHFR, sorry, Stormy's running around, helps to produce methionine, which is needed for glutathione production. And we talked about that in that MTHFR, when we talk about those pathways, glutathione being one of those things produced. So my rant on detox, I can't stand all the detox programs. They tend to be very expensive, very elaborate. And again, they're going to be filled with tons of different supplements. Well, some of those are going to kind of improve or increase phase 1 and hamper phase 2. Well, we just said a lot of times that new product produced in phase 1 is actually more toxic than what was there to start with. And if we've ramped down phase 2, we're not going to get rid of that product now as easily. So it's going to build up and it's actually more toxic than what we started with. Kind of defeats the purpose. The other part, it might ramp up phase 2, but then dampen down phase 1. Well, if we're not converting those toxic substances into something that we need phase 2 for, it's kind of harming things too. And my real big issue with all of it, though, is that the people who are running these programs, selling all these supplements, they kind of say it like, oh, this will fix everything and that's the key to your health. And yeah, I just don't think it's that simple. Our body's pretty good at detoxifying things. I do think there's going to be times where people need help, of course. That's always the case. But just having this cookie cutter program to follow and take all these supplements, even if they did work to detoxify your body completely, as soon as you go back outside, you're not in your hermetically sealed home with air purifiers and everything else that's pure and pristine and nothing negative's ever been in there. As soon as you break that seal, as soon as you go outside, you're going to be exposed to toxic substances again. It's the way the world is. We're constantly being exposed. Again, our body has a great way of dealing with things. It's pretty smart. So a lot of times if we'll just kind of get out of the way, it'll take care of itself. So that's why I'm not a big fan of those big programs. Again, not saying there's no place for some help with detoxification, but a pure specific program for it, I don't believe in. I just don't think they're right. Remember, we're detoxifying every time we breathe, every time we pee, every time we poop, and when we sweat. So if we're doing those things, we should be well on our way to getting things under control. There's different things we can do to help out with these GST, GPX enzymes, MTHFR enzymes, other things too. So just the basic foundations of health will play a big role in this. And then you don't need this big, elaborate, expensive program that's just focused solely on detoxification. It's not the only thing our body needs to be healthy. So that's enough of that rant. So like we said, GST, GPX, there's some interactions there, or some ways where they kind of interact with MTHFR, kind of feed off of each other. Again, with that MTHFR pathway, we do have glutathione being produced that we need for GST and GPX. But if we have poor methylation, that means we have decreased glutathione. But if we have stress, we have an increased need for glutathione. So that's not a good combination to have. Glutathione is also needed for B12 to be carried around on different proteins. That way it can be carried around our body and distributed to the different cells. And B12 is important for the MTHFR pathway too. And so we're starting to see how all these things interact. It's not just one or the other. Glutathione is needed for neurotransmitters, heart health, and immune health. So one of the things that glutathione can do, and it can help to kind of protect nitric oxide from degradation or being broken down. It does also react with nitric oxide to produce a different product that actually makes it easier to store and to transport around the body. And if you think back to some of the discussions we did with insulin resistance, we talked about nitric oxide when it comes to blood vessel health. It helps to dilate the blood vessels, which helps to decrease blood pressure. If our arteries constricted and narrow, that pressure is going to be higher. If it can dilate and be loose and flexible, then the pressure is less. And that's going to be a good thing for our vascular system, a good thing for our heart. And then having it where it can be transported around is a good thing too. And so that's why you see, again, some more of those interactions there. Some of the key nutrients for glutathione, cysteine, so an amino acid, riboflavin, and selenium. Selenium is also important for thyroid. We've seen riboflavin be important for a lot of different things. It's important in just cellular metabolism, so energy production as well. So, it definitely plays a key role in a lot of different things. Cysteine is an amino acid. It's one of the sulfur-containing amino acids. And this is where one of the supplements that was kind of real popular, has been real popular lately, NAC, N-acetyl cysteine. You kind of see how it could be helpful with this, which can help out on immune health and detoxification and different things. You can see why that supplement has become popular and why it has beneficial uses too. It's not without warrant that it's been popular and been used. There are some other genes. So we have some SUOX or sulfite oxidase genes or enzymes that help to break down those sulfur-containing amino acids, and that way they can be used. So just as an aside, a key nutrient for that is molybdenum. We don't need a ton of molybdenum, but we need some, and it can play a role there and with other things. So that's it for today with the GST GPX. I hope that makes sense. We've kind of talked about glutathione, plenty of other times, and how it can play a role with helping to neutralize things, being that master antioxidant, so it can help decrease oxidative stress or help us to manage that, help us just to manage stress in general. This is why we want to, with the detox, like I said, I don't like those big programs. I don't think they're good. I do think trying to minimize our exposures is a great way to go about things. So you kind of combine that along with the foundations of health and making sure that you're peeing, pooping, sweating, and breathing. And I think you'll take care of a lot of these things on your own. As we continue through this series, I guess we could say, we'll talk about some more specifics on what we can do specifically. Sorry, specific too many times there. But we'll talk more about kind of, just that general program to start with, and then maybe some things specifically for those enzymes and kind of what order, because you don't want to just pick one and do it. Since they can impact the others, we want to kind of go through things in a specific order, because that way we might fix this issue up here in this one, and then we don't need to do anything down here, because by the time we take care of those 2 or 3, then it like clears up 3 and 4 or 5, so it might take care of the others and not need anything there. So we'll get into that later. It's a little, I don't know, I guess a little something for you guys to look forward to. Hopefully it wasn't confusing, but we just want to go through a specific order. That'll help to address things, and then each one that comes after that will be easier to address, I guess is one way of saying it too. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and I will see you next time. Bye.